Good afternoon and welcome into the second floor of the Duncan Student Center. I'm Maria Wainscott. Joined with me here today is Chris Frick and JJ Post. Today we're going to be talking about our senior night that we've got coming up. We're going to be reflecting on the dominant win against the Virginia Cavaliers in Charlottesville last week, and hopefully with senior night this week we can pull out another dominant win. You're watching Shamrock Sports. All right, everybody, so what an incredible game last week that we had against the Cavaliers in Charlottesville. What do you guys think? What are some initial reactions? What did we like? What did not like about last game?
I mean, it's difficult to ask for much more than what we got last game. You know, we played a Virginia team that we knew was going to be slightly depleted without Brendan Armstrong. He's their star man at quarterback. But even without him, the defense looked the part of an elite college football defense. The Marcus Freeman hire, everyone was so excited about. This was the game we expected. Quarterback, new guy, we know it, but he was under pressure all night, and he forced throws like that. Interceptions were this team's lifeblood. We are third in the nation, I believe, in interceptions total. It's a defense that looks like a team that can compete with the best of the best. Whether the offense can catch up, that's the question we're going to need to answer in the coming weeks.
Yeah, and it was also a defense that was completely depleted. I mean, you talk about Drew White out, Myron Tagovailoa-Amosa out, Kyle Hamilton out. Three key guys at all three levels of the defense out with injuries, and the defense still stepped up, looked pretty dominant. I mean, you talk about that game versus Notre Dame's other two road games, true road games this season. You know, that first game against Florida State, almost taking a loss there in overtime. And then against Virginia Tech, I mean, honestly, they should have lost that game down 29-21 late. But again, you take a look at these interceptions, the plays made by the defense. This is a different team than the team that started the year. Really impressive stuff you mentioned out of Coach Freeman. And also, the offense has been rolling too.
Oh, certainly. You know, just quickly to build on what both of you said, this game for me really set in stone that this team has grown. This is the first time I really saw our Notre Dame team play to not the level of their opponent. They really set the standard to how they wanted to play instead of matching another team's energy. So this was really remarkable for me. So let's talk a little bit more about kind of Indy's running game emerging, right? So who for you, JJ, really stood out in terms of the running game this past week?
Yeah, I know Kyron Williams make the headline every week, and he deserves it because he is the bell cow, he is Kyron the Siren, all that. But how about Logan Diggs stepping up? You know, the highlight reel play, just the alone, you know, we're going to look at it right here. Good cut to get to the outside, breaks the tackle, stiff arms the guy to the ground, and here comes the defender trying to tackle him. Let me just go up and over, take the high route. I think we all saw Najee Harris do that to Notre Dame. I think it was good to get a little bit of that medicine on our side. You know, Logan Diggs is a player who has a freshman coming in as a 3-star recruit. This is why LSU tried so hard to take him off us. This is why he's a player that Brian Kelly clearly trusts as a young player to get reps in early and do stuff like that.
Yeah, it certainly is exciting to have a player on our team who can jump over other human beings. My inability to do that is what prevented me from playing college ball, unfortunately. But, I mean, I think if you're talking about the running game, like, Logan Diggs was great, don't get me wrong, but how can you not talk about Kyron Williams? Kyron Williams has just been insane this season. And it's not even just his ability to bust out long runs. It's runs like this where he's turning losses into gains. He's turning 2 yards into 5 yards, 5 yards into 15 yards, 15 yards into touchdowns. He has been absolutely insane this year. And also, you talk about other aspects of his game. He's a great pass blocker. He's a guy who can blow up 300-pound defensive lineman, which is just crazy to see out of someone his size. And also, the energy that he provides to Notre Dame's team. I mean, Kyron Williams might be the biggest trash talker I've ever seen. He does not let up on the field. Whether you're Notre Dame's rival or you're Navy, he is not going to hold back, which I think is really fun to see. And I think he's a great leader who, if he goes pro next year, I mean, they're not just going to miss his talent on the field. They're going to miss his leadership ability.
Absolutely.
All I'm saying is the shush versus the Hokies was what started the comeback when he shushed Lane Stadium. That's when the energy came in.
Oh, totally. No, JJ, I have to agree with you, though. I'm really impressed with Logan Diggs and his run game really emerging this past week against the Cavaliers. You know, this is a guy who didn't play a single snap of football until week 6 against Virginia Tech when Chris Tyree was injured. So this is a kind of put-me-in coach kind of player that we haven't necessarily seen before on this team, right? He's gritty, he wants that ball, and he makes plays when he gets in there. So I really like what we're seeing from Logan Diggs here. You know, talking about the offense, let's look at the secondary here. What kind of defensive highlights really stood out to you guys last game?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to take kind of the cheat route and go with the entire defense because what really stood out to me was, as a unit, how they stood tall in pressure situations. You know, against a team like Virginia, they have a high-powered offense, and we said it's not Brendan Armstrong, so we can't take everything away from this. But this is a team that faced pressure situations on multiple occasions, 3rd and 4th down, and they stood tall. Here we're going to see 4th down, third quarter, sack right there. Push it back, get good field position from the offense as well. Now on third down, close to the goal line, you're going to force a field goal here because look at this. The pocket collapses, they bring down the quarterback, and this is the high-pressure, high-octane Marcus Freeman defense that we've got from Cincinnati. This is the aggressiveness, bringing the blitz on third and fourth down. Teams don't usually expect you to bring all the energy, bring all the pressure, and that's what this team does, and I think it's catching a lot of teams off guard, and it's making Notre Dame a very formidable foe because you can't try them on third and fourth down. You can't expect them to sit back and let them bring the game to you. They're going to pressure you, they're going to force the issue, and they're going to make the stop.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you obviously the defense as a whole has been great. If you're trying to look at an individual player here, I look at a guy like Bo Bauer. You know, again, he's stepping in for Drew White on Saturday night. 9 tackles, 1.5 sacks. You're going to see his highlights here. He just bursts into the backfield, and Bo Bauer has been such a high energy guy for years. I mean, for the first few years at Notre Dame, he was pretty much a special teams guy. You'd see him sprinting down the field on every kickoff and usually hyping up the crowd after the fact. So, I mean, he's a guy who has really had to earn his keeps at Notre Dame, and now he's reaping the rewards for it. He has been absolutely electric in that linebacker position, a position that coming into the season was considered one of Notre Dame's weaker points. But having a guy like him, a senior, we're talking about senior week this week, he's been a huge addition for them. You talk also about that interception against USC. A lot of big plays from Bo Bauer this year.
Oh, absolutely. You know, I couldn't agree more with either of you. You're making this, analysis so easy for me because I actually was in Charlottesville last weekend and I saw that energy firsthand. So for me, another player that we've got to recognize on the secondary is DJ Brown, okay? Losing Kyle Hamilton in the safety position was a huge, devastating loss, as all of Notre Dame football knows, right? So DJ Brown stepping up in that caliber of position, right? That's a big shoe to fill. So I really think he's done incredibly well, especially last week with that interception in the end zone, right? Obviously, we were far ahead of the Cavaliers. Didn't necessarily need that in a turn of momentum at all, but that's what we need. That's another guy that's a put-me-in coach kind of guy that wants the ball, makes these plays because he's now been given the opportunity to make the plays after Kyle Hamilton, So he's really stepping up, and I love what we're seeing. Okay, so now we've got a segment here from another member of our team, Ben.
Fellow Domers, and welcome to the first edition of Ben's Bowl Bets, the segment where you get to see into the future of the college football season with your host, Ben Bailey. We're heading into week 11 of the 2021-22 season and therefore have received the second wave of college football playoff rankings for the committees themselves. And oh boy, were we in for some treats. Cincinnati was left out of the coveted top 4, Michigan was placed above Michigan State. What's that all about? And Oklahoma was placed at number 8. What? Anyways, despite all that confusion, I think I have a pretty sound understanding of how this rest of the season will play out, and here's how that will go. Heading down to Atlanta, Georgia to play in the Peach Bowl, Big 12 runner-up will take on the Aggies of Texas A&M. The Cowboys are legit this year, taking down ranked Baylor and Texas earlier in the season, but they're not done. They'll trade wins with Oklahoma late in the season, but will end up losing to them in the Big 12 championship. Texas A&M, on the other hand, is a serious problem. They proved that they can play on a big stage against a quality opponent when they beat the top dogs in Alabama a couple of weeks ago, and they've kept their foot on the gas after they beat Auburn a few weeks later. Both teams shouldn't be overlooked, and I see them playing each other in the Peach Bowl. In the home of the Arizona Cardinals, the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame will take on the Spartans of Michigan State, and as much as I hate to say it, especially in the shirt, go green. Notre Dame quarterback Jack Cohn has shown significant signs of improvement as the season has progressed, which I believe will help them into an undefeated regular season and an appearance in the Fiesta Bowl. The Spartans, however, led by running back Kenneth Walker III, are a serious problem for opposing defenses. They've run all over them, including rival Michigan. They're going to lose one late in the season to Ohio State, knocking them out of a Big 10 championship appearance, and ultimately placing them in the Fiesta Bowl. In the granddaddy of them all, the Rose Bowl, I'm calling that Michigan will face off against a lower caliber opponent in the Utah Utes. The team up north will take a late season loss to their arch nemesis in Ohio State, ultimately eliminating them from conference championship contention. Coach Jim Harbaugh is doing all he can from being out as head coach in Ann Arbor, but losing to Michigan State and then Ohio State will be too much. It's going to be interesting to see how the Rose Bowl will handle who plays in their game, and if they choose to break the tradition of hosting the Pac-12 champion or runner-up, as Utah may not be the attention grabber that they were hoping to host. In the final New Year's Six bowl game, I predict that the Oklahoma Sooners will take on the Alabama Crimson Tide in the Sugar Bowl. As I hinted at earlier, Oklahoma is going to take a late season loss to their rivals in Oklahoma State, but it's hard to beat a team twice. They're going to win in the Big 12 championship against the same team, ultimately being placed in the Sugar Bowl. Even right now, with their impressive resume, Oklahoma doesn't deserve to be in the top 4 according to the committee, and I think that's going to stick at the end of the season. Alabama is going to take a late season loss to the Georgia Bulldogs in the SEC Championship, ultimately taking them out of playoff contention. A 2-loss team is never going to make it, and this year is no exception to that. Heading to the college football playoff, I can easily see the number 1 Georgia Bulldogs take on the 4th-ranked Cincinnati Bearcats. There's not much to analyze on Georgia, other than that they deserve the nickname of the Dogs. They've treated every team this year like a peewee team, and there's no signs of them slowing down, even when they play Alabama in the SEC Championship. They'll play Cincinnati in the Orange Bowl. The committee has absolutely no excuses this year to exclude a Group of 5 team. Cincinnati, assuming they remain unbeaten, deserves to be in the top 4, especially after taking down Notre Dame on their home turf. They'll have to let in the Bearcats this year, who will end up just getting smothered by Georgia and Florida anyways. In the other playoff matchup, I have the number 2 Ohio State Buckeyes taking on the number 3 Oregon Ducks in the Cotton Bowl. These two teams actually played earlier in the season where Oregon got the best of Ohio State in their home turf in the Horseshoe, which is impressive to do. Running back C.J. Verdell went off for 161 yards and 2 touchdowns, ultimately taking down the Buckeyes. However, he's out with a leg injury for the rest of the season, and running back replacement Travis Sy won't be able to do that, especially against highly ranked opponents. They'll take each other on in the Cotton Bowl in Dallas this year, wrapping up this year's bowl season. Thank you so much for watching. This has been the first edition of Ben's Bowl Bets, and make sure to book my bets in Vegas.
Thanks, Ben, for that really informative segment. Now that we've taken a look around college football, guys, what are your top 10 thoughts about college football and the playoffs?
I mean, to start us off here, I don't think Oregon's very good. In fact, I would say that they're bad. Well, I mean, that's a stretch, but I mean, number 3 in the country seems a bit ridiculous given their resume. They had that big win against Ohio State, and then ever since then, here you're seeing their loss to Stanford, who is also not good in my astute observations of college football. But I mean, you look at this Oregon team, they're ranked number 3 right now, and the fact that the College Football Playoff Committee is kind of factoring in head-to-head matchups in some cases, but not others, is a big double standard in the college football playoff right now. You know, you talk about if you're going to rank Michigan over Michigan State, I feel like you have to be ranking Ohio State over Oregon just based on the body of their resume ever since that game. You know, it took them 1 week to say, all right, Michigan's actually better than Michigan State. I'm shocked that within 6 weeks or however long it's been that they haven't said, I think Ohio State might be a little bit better here.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, a team that, like you said, they're not bad, but are they really as good as we think they are? Oklahoma State. And don't get me wrong, I like watching Oklahoma State play. I am so happy there's a defensive team in the Big 12. But I'm really just not convinced by the resume because they have played so many teams that are not that good close. Here we're going to see, a game they eventually won, but that's just a read that can't be happening if you're a team that wants to contend for the playoffs. And Oklahoma State, they've slowly been, kind of gaining momentum as the season goes on, but they got a trap game coming up this week. Then they got Oklahoma, who they've beaten just 4 times since the turn of the century, coming up next, and then possibly Baylor in the championship game. I don't think they make it out unbeaten. On the other side, I think Ole Miss is a team that, I don't know if they're that elite, but they are fun. And that's a team that I think on New Year's 6, when we're watching those bowl games, you're going to enjoy watching them because they put up a lot of points. They put up a lot of points fast. Definitely
interesting. Guys, my pick, I'm thinking Cincinnati's going to fall. They're going to play SMU this weekend. I think that there's still some things that are weaknesses that should be exploited at this point in the game. I really do think that Cincinnati has made some really remarkable mistakes, and it's kind of insane that they've made it out to this far and in the positive way that they have. I think the mistakes against Navy are really sticking out in my mind as big mistakes this season. They almost, Navy almost pulled out a win on them. That's scary. Notre Dame almost pulled out a win on them, and we should have. But one thing I also want to say, I think Alabama has more to show. I think they're ready to defend that title, and I don't think we've seen the end of them quite yet. So they're going to put up a fight for that college football playoff title. All right, you guys, so we're at almost the point where we're getting to the most contentious, point of our segment here. But what's your upset pick of the week?
All right, a couple weeks ago, I told you, I looked at the camera and said, Iowa has a momentum game at home, the crowd's going to be bringing it, and they're going to take down Penn State. We don't talk about what happened to Iowa and Penn State after that, and then my subsequent prediction that Iowa would win the Big Ten. That's not what we're talking about. Right now, what we're going to talk about is this week, Utah has a momentum game against Oregon. The crowd's going to be rocking. I don't know if anyone here has seen the alternate jerseys they have at the game. They're electric. Utah's going to win that game, and Oregon, like you said, who is hashtag not very good, is going to fall, and Notre Dame, by all the haters, and everyone's being mad about it, will once again re-enter the college football playoff conversation. please get mad online about it.
JJ, I got to agree with you here, but unfortunately, I think America agrees with you too, because I think Utah is technically favored on the spread right now. I think they're a 3-point favorite right now. I'm going to go with,
Vegas, not America.
Vegas agrees with you as well. Yeah,
It's a good place to be, though. I trust Vegas.
I feel like Vegas is a representation of America. It's a small microcosm of
Yeah,
America.
that's fair.
But I think, this is bold. I really want to pick Sparty. Michigan State, Ohio State, a fun game this week in Columbus. Michigan State has not had much success recently against Ohio State, just 2-8 in their last 10 matchups. But both of those wins coming in Columbus. So I think the thing with college football this season is every time there's been that college football titan that's like, oh, they're good, they're going to win. It was Oregon at one point this year. It was Alabama at one point this year. That titan has fallen. And I think Ohio State, people are really high on them after that Purdue win. I don't think they're unbeatable.
All right, you guys. Well, thank you so much for those upset picks. We're now going to go to Jacob on the streets, interviewing some students of Notre Dame and what they're going to miss about football season once it is gone.
Hey, what's up, guys? On the first floor of the Duncan Student Center, we're trying to look for people to talk about student game days. And oh my God, come on, guys! We got my RA Tom over here. Tom, senior, what are you gonna miss about Notre Dame game days?
Oof, gosh, everything about game days and Notre Dame is great, but specifically, I miss every year the first game at 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. in the morning. The upperclassmen will just go and bang on the first doors and wake them up to get them ready for game days. I think that's pretty fun.
What are you gonna miss about Notre Dame game days?
I'm going to miss getting up super early, hearing the guys in my dorm wake me up, to shipping up to Boston. I love that. Going to miss it so much.
Awesome answer. Everyone loves a good early wake-up call. Found Trev, guy from Siggy, fellow Rambler. Got to ask him, what are you going to miss about Notre Dame game days?
I love the dining hall. Food's always fantastic, and the energy is unmatched, so got to miss that.
See, that's a man with smarts, knows where the food is. So let's go find some more people. When you work in Duncan, you can also get interviewed a bunch of times. So what are you going to miss about Notre Dame game days?
I'm going to miss the excitement when I wake up in my dorm in the morning with my friends.
Beautiful answer. Classy answer. Let's go find some more people. Hey, we're out here at Haggerty Family Cafe right behind us. What are you going to miss about Notre Dame game days?
The thing that I'm going to miss the most about Notre Dame game days is just being able to look around the stadium and seeing fans from every angle and seeing everyone stand up, and especially that feeling and the excitement I get when they make some noise or get loud. Just the noise is just, that whole experience is irreplaceable.
Beautiful, poetic answer. Let's go find some more answers. I found a Sunrise host. You might remember her from Wednesday morning. Elena, what are you going to miss about Notre Dame game days?
Well, I'm going to miss all the touchdown push-ups the most. I think that the moment when we get a touchdown and you see everybody like just going up and down all around the stadium would be super fun. Oh, or the waves. The waves have been great.
The waves have been great. They've been going for a pretty long time.
Yes. Multiple. I think everybody's like, when is it going to stop? But that's the fun of it. So.
Waves and an atmosphere. Phenomenal. Maybe it's going to be less Shamrock sports highlights that you're going to be excited about, no more Notre Dame game days. But Anthony, what are you going to miss about Notre Dame game days?
I am going to live in the moment and not be sad that they're gone, but happy that they happened.
A phenomenal answer from a phenomenal guy. That's the man in the streets. I'm Jacob Irons. We'll send it back to the desk. Bye, guys.
Jacob, thanks so much for that really insightful segment. I know we're definitely going to miss everything that is Notre Dame football. So, guys, in that same vein, I want to go out strong with this senior week, right? I want a big win, but that means that we have to target what Georgia Tech does well. So, according to you guys, what have we seen from the Yellow Jackets this season that is something that we need to tackle?
Yeah, let's not sleep on the Georgia Tech offense, first and foremost. The advanced analytics on Georgia Tech admittedly don't look great, but you know what? In 6 of their 10 games, they've scored more than 30 points, which is not an easy feat. You know, I know sometimes the numbers are kind of deceiving because the underlying numbers for Georgia Tech, they're not spectacular. They're about average. But this is a team that has a very quality, they have a high-quality attack. They can run the ball well. And they can also, you know, they got that dynamic player in Gibbs who can bring the ball back on a kick return like you're going to see here. This is a game Georgia Tech's down 17-0, and look at how he just takes off. That we saw it against Wisconsin with Chris Tyree. The big play on a special teams play can totally turn a game on its head. If Notre Dame gets caught slacking, they let Gibbs do that. That can break the game wide open. So Notre Dame has to be wary that this is a team with players with big play potential. And even though, the run game doesn't look good on paper, it's a run game that, like you see there, he takes on 3 defenders, he keeps on going. There is big play potential in this team, and there's big point potential in this team. So Notre Dame's defense, probably a more underrated test than Virginia, but it's a test nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at what this team does well, and one thing that they do well is they simply just are able to keep teams close. They had one blowout loss against Pitt earlier this season, but I think you look at them as a whole, and I think they're really good at keeping teams close. 5 of their 7 losses by 10 points or less, 4 of those one-possession games. If you could keep a team close, you can beat a team. They just have to stay in this one and try to strike when the time's right. If you're in a one-possession game, you can win any game.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you, JJ, about this Jahmyr Gibbs threat. I think a Notre Dame comparable is Logan Diggs or a Chris Tyree. He can break out and make those plays, and I'm a little bit nervous about that. I think our defense has really come together here in this final stretch of games. I just really hope that we can, have that strong, formidable defensive presence that we normally do to really restrict that threat in Jahmyr Gibbs. So, now, as we mentioned several times, it's senior week, right? So we've mentioned what Georgia Tech does well. How can our seniors really defend, these threats that we see on Georgia Tech? Is there a senior that you guys have in mind that we should watch this week?
I mean, I was thinking about Kurt Heinisch. Most games ever played at Notre Dame, and we've talked about that Georgia Tech run game. He's going to be a key within the actual game script in terms of stopping that Georgia Tech run. But I mean, Kurt Heinisch, a guy who's a captain on this team, a guy who's been a leader for years. Here you see tossing guys on the field in the Virginia Tech game. He's an absolute monster at that nose tackle position, although I don't know, it might have been a horse collar play there, but a strong guy, grit, exactly.
Absolutely.
Scrappy player, yeah. So, I mean, I think Kurt Heinisch definitely, and likely his last game at Notre Dame, going to be a guy to watch on Saturday.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm going to keep the plaudits going for the interior defensive line. I'm going to go with Jason Ademilola. He's rarely the most, impressive player on the stat sheet for Notre Dame because Isaiah Foskey, kind of the sack master on that defensive line. But Jason's a player that every game in and game out, he's constantly in the backfield. And he's always, the second guy. When it feels like he's breaking away, Jason's the second guy on the scene. And here we're going to see a play against Wisconsin. He just manhandles Graham Mertz to force this fumble. He's a player with a lot of power on the defensive line. They can use him on the inside, they can use him on the outside, and he just strips that ball and brings Graham down with him. Foskey recovers it, and that was a play that we talk about momentum changers, plays that change the game script. That was a play that flipped the game on its head, gave Notre Dame possession, and we scored right after. So I think this is a Notre Dame team that really relies on its interior defensive. You mentioned Hrinch, I mentioned Ademilola. These players can penetrate, and they can create the chaos in the backfield that allows Foskey to come off the edge and get the sack.
Oh, totally. I'm going to pick on someone that you, decided to analyze earlier today in the show. So I think it's really important that we watch senior Bo Bauer. He has had an incredible stretch of plays in the past 5 home games that we've seen from him this year. He is a 5th-year senior. He hasn't seen a lot of the field in his past career at Notre Dame, but I mean, this guy is really coming into his own at the right time. He had 9 tackles last week against Virginia in Charlottesville with 2 sacks. So in one game, that's a pretty good statistical lineup there.
Solid game.
I think against Georgia Tech with those running threats, I think we really need to keep an eye on Bo Bauer. All right, you guys, so we're now at the most important part of our show, right? Last Shamrock Sports of the season, last score predictions of the season. What do you guys think?
I think, look, it's senior day, right? I think Notre Dame usually starts off a bit slow on senior day, but they usually pick it up. So I'm gonna say they start slow, they pick it up, and they get a big win for the seniors. 42-10 Notre Dame.
Love it.
I love your optimism. I don't love our ability to keep teams close, and Georgia Tech's ability to keep teams close. I'm going to go with a slightly watered-down version of what you're saying, a game which, first half kind of ugly. It's going to be a blustery 40-degree day in South Bend. It's going to be not a bad game to watch, not a good game to watch, but one Notre Dame kind of pulls away late, and give me a 31-20 Notre Dame win.
Love it. JJ, I'm pretty close with you on that. I'm not favoring Georgia Tech as much. I think that they're down at least one more field goal. I'm going 31-17 Notre Dame. And, I think that this is just going to be another breakout game for Notre Dame. I think it's going to be a little closer than we anticipate, obviously, with that 31-17 score prediction as I anticipate. But you know what? I think senior day, it's going to be an electric game for a lot of players. So, all right, you guys. Well, that is what we've got for you today on Shamrock Sports. Thank you so much for tuning in. Follow us on social media, Notre Dame Television on Instagram and Twitter. We really appreciate it. And go Irish.